Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Today this gaming boomer is talking about why the PlayStation 3 is still awesome. There's a lot to discuss, so sit back and let's get into it. Let's get the obvious out of the way. The games. The PlayStation 3 saw rise to some of the best franchises. Some unfortunately even lived and died on the console. And while we know this current era of Sony is defined by their first party titles, I would say the PS3 era is where Sony began their journey. I still remember valuing my PlayStation 3 because of the titles that were only playable on the console. You had games like Infamous, Little Big Planet, Gran Turismo, God of War 3, Motorstorm, frickin' Uncharted, The Last of Us, Killzone, Resistance, and even PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale. Okay, maybe that last one doesn't need to be shouted from the rooftops, but I digress. These franchises were a reason to get a PlayStation 3. And it should be pointed out that even to this day, if you want to enjoy a lot of these titles, they're locked behind the PlayStation 3. Sure, you can go the PC emulation route if you have a PC, or stream some of the PS3 titles available on the PlayStation Classics catalog with a premium subscription. But depending on where you're located and your Wi-Fi connection, streaming these titles can have a serious effect on your experience with the gameplay. Things like streaming artifacting and extra latency, that can be less than ideal. Not to mention, you are extremely limited to what Sony is able to license out for its streaming service. So until Sony decides to make backwards compatibility with PlayStation 3, the best way to experience a lot of these titles is still picking up the console and playing these games locally on the hardware. One thing you gotta remember, the 7th generation of consoles was in the HD boom. High definition was the next big thing, and Sony was smart to bet big on this. Having the Blu-ray player packed into the machine meant games were printed on a Blu-ray disc, and having that extra data capacity on the disc allowed games to be developed with high definition graphics in mind. And let me tell you, with certain titles, it shows. Honestly, playing some of these games at full 1080p resolution on the PlayStation 3, it's just incredible. I found myself forgetting I was playing on almost 20-year-old hardware. You'll be playing Resogun on PS3 thinking to yourself, why does this game look sharper than that new Unreal Engine 5 game on my PS5? It's a little food for thought. Now, when it comes to collecting these games, it has never been a better time, as resale value for most PS3 games are relatively cheap and affordable. I've been able to pick up titles from $5 to $10. That's pretty awesome and makes getting into this hobby of PS3 gaming a lot more accessible. Speaking of accessibility, the news dropped that Sony was going to close the PlayStation Store for the PS3 and Vita systems back in 2020. Now, thankfully, our community rallied up and pushed back against this. And because of that action, you can still enjoy the store to download and purchase games today. Other thing to mention that made the PS3 a big seller back in the day was, while its competition was charging a monthly fee for its online gaming service, the PlayStation 3 was free. That's right. And even now, if you want to hop on and play online for select titles that still have their servers open, you could totally do so without a PlayStation Plus membership. Now, of course, PlayStation would soon pull back on this and begin charging for their online connectivity with the PS4 generation, but the fact remains you can still enjoy free online play with the PS3. And the fact that many people are still on this great machine playing games makes it all that much sweeter. Let's take a quick moment to recognize the interface of the PS3. This is the XMB menu. You'll recognize it from PSP and, well, PS3, obviously. This menu system, to this day, is my favorite interface to interact with on any console. Scroll left or right, then down or up. You are immediately exploring the menu with ease and finding those options you need. While I don't mind the PS4 and PS5 menus, clicking the gear button, then scrolling through the titles options just to be brought to another screen with more setting options, you're always being moved from one screen to the next. It could kind of make you feel lost. The XMB, on the other hand, all right in front of you. They say a good menu is a simple one, and the PlayStation 3 nailed it. If only some games got this memo. Okay, I know what you're thinking. For a video talking about PlayStation 3, I've talked about everything except the actual hardware itself. Well, I like to save the best for last. So let's talk about the beauty, the wonder, of the PlayStation 3 console. I think the PlayStation 3 is one of the better looking consoles Sony has released. Something about its smooth, round form factor. After the more square, boxy designs of the PS1 and PS2, the PS3 came in with that Cadillac of console design. Of course, we would see some redesigns through its life cycle, and I'll discuss those more in a future video. But when looking at the launch model and even the Slim, both keep the similar form factor, rounded corners and sleek. Also, at least for me, this was the first time I could insert a disc into a console that would just eat it up. Not inserting it into a tray was one of the most next-gen things to me back in the day. If you're looking to pick up a PlayStation 3 console, these bad boys are very affordable on the used market. Depending on which one you're looking for, of course. It's never been a better time to revisit or discover PlayStation 3 gaming. To sum it up, I love my PlayStation 3. It brings me back to a simpler time in gaming. Publishers focused on making good games to turn profit. Couch co-op was still the standard. The words live service were not yet a part of our vocabulary. I know, I'm sounding like a gaming boomer. But the fact is, PlayStation 3 is still awesome. It had some growing pains when it first launched, but Sony went ahead and pulled one of the greatest Uno reverses with this one. So, if you have a PlayStation 3 gathering dust, I recommend you power it up and rediscover what made this era of gaming so great. Alright, that's all for me. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Let me know why you still love your PS3. And be sure to stick around as we discuss and explore even more things PlayStation. We'll catch you next time.